Working with epoxy resin as a DIY artist allows for boundless creativity and the creation of stunning, long-lasting wood crafts. However, it is equally important to recognize that epoxy resin, like many other crafting materials, comes with inherent risk. Without the proper precautions, exposure to epoxy and its associated chemicals can lead to health hazards, property damage, or even life-threatening situations. This video outlines some essential safety practices to keep in mind, focusing on personal protective equipment, fire safety, chemical handling, and emergency preparedness. When working with epoxy resin, the first line of defense against potential hazards is using the proper personal protective equipment. Epoxy resin contains chemicals that can cause skin irritation, allergic reactions, or even burns. To mitigate this risk, always wear nitrile gloves, which provide excellent chemical resistance while still allowing for dexterity. Latex gloves are not recommended as they can degrade quickly when exposed to solvents and epoxy, leaving your skin vulnerable to exposure. In addition to gloves, it's essential to protect your eyes. When mixing or pouring epoxy, there is a risk of splashes that could cause severe irritation or damage to your eyes. Safety glasses with side shields are basic protective measure, but for optimal protection, use goggles, especially when sanding cured epoxy. These create fine dusts that can irritate both your eyes and respiratory system if inhaled. To protect your lungs from harmful fumes and dusts, always wear a respirator designed to filter out organic vapors and particulates. Epoxy resin releases fumes that can cause headaches, dizziness, and long-term respiratory issues if inhaled regularly. Look for respirators that filter both dust particles and organic vapors, particularly if you work in poorly ventilated spaces or when sanding cured resin. Proper lung protection is key to avoiding respiratory problems over time. To prevent resin from contacting your skin or gloves, wear long sleeves, aprons, or disposable coveralls. Epoxy resin is difficult to remove once cured and can soak through regular clothing if it's uncured, leading to unwanted skin exposure. Protective clothing will also safeguard you from any accidental spills or splashes while working. While proper ventilation isn't typically categorized as PPE, it is usually important. Ensure that your workspace has a good airflow to minimize exposure to fumes and dust. Ideally, you should have both a source of fresh air, such as open windows, and a way to expel fumes, like exhaust fans or air purifiers. This will reduce the concentration of harmful particles in the air. Working with epoxy resin often involves using heat to remove bubbles from a freshly poured surface. Heat guns, propane torches, and similar tools are common in epoxy work but present potential fire hazards if not handled carefully. Having fire safety measures in place can prevent accidents and minimize damage should a fire occur. One of the most essential fire safety tools in your studio is a fire extinguisher. Always keep an accessible, properly functioning fire extinguisher in your workspace. There are different types of fire extinguishers for different kinds of fires. Class B extinguishers are for flammable liquids like epoxy, and Class C extinguishers are for electrical fires. It's important to have the correct extinguisher on hand for the specific risk in your studio. Regularly inspect your fire extinguisher and consider getting basic training on how to use it effectively in an emergency. Electrical safety is another crucial aspect of fire prevention. Many DIY studios rely on multiple electronic devices, from heat guns to power tools. Faulty wiring, overloaded circuits, or damaged extension cords can lead to dangerous electrical fires. Always ensure that your workspace's electrical system is up to code and avoid plugging too many devices into a single outlet. Inspect electrical cords regularly for any signs of wear, such as frayed insulations or exposed wires, and replace them if needed. Use extension cords sparingly and only for short-term purposes. When using heat tools like a propane torch, avoid concentrating the heat in one spot for too long, as this could cause surrounding materials or even the resin itself to ignite. Always keep flammable items such as paper towels, wood shavings or racks away from your work area when using heat. Proper spacing between your tools and any flammable materials is vital to avoiding accidental fires. Flammable chemicals like isopropyl alcohol and acetone are frequently used in epoxy resin projects. These chemicals should be stored safely in a cool, dry place away from any heat sources. Ideally, store them in a fireproof cabinet to prevent combustion in case of a fire. Proper storage will greatly reduce the risk of a fire spreading and protect your studio from extensive damage. Epoxy resin, hardness and solvents are essential components of any epoxy woodcraft project, but they are also hazardous if mishandled. One of the most important rules in working with chemicals is to use only what you need. This limits the potential for spills, accidental exposure, and dangerous chemical reactions. Always mix chemicals in a controlled environment and make sure your workspace is protected with a non-reactive surface such as plastic sheeting or a silicone mat. When mixing epoxy resin and hardener, follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully to avoid creating hazardous byproducts or causing spills that could be difficult to clean up. Chemicals should always be stored in their original containers whenever possible. These containers are designed to hold specific chemicals safely and are typically labeled with hazard warnings. If you need to transfer a chemical to a secondary container, ensure it is clearly labeled with the chemical's name and any necessary warnings. This will help you keep track of the materials you are working with and avoid accidentally mixing incompatible substances. To further enhance safety, keep material safety data sheets on hand for all chemicals in your workspace. These documents provide important information on chemical properties, handling guidelines, and what to do in case of exposure. In the event of an accident, the MSDS can be a critical resource for first responders or medical professionals. Another key safety measure is proper chemical waste disposal. Uncured epoxy resin should never be poured down the drain, as it can harden and block plumbing or contaminate water supplies. Dispose of resin waste, including gloves, racks, and containers, according to local hazardous waste regulations. Whenever possible, recycle solvents or other materials to minimize waste and its environmental impact. Despite taking every precaution, accidents can still happen in the studio. Being prepared for emergencies can make a great difference in handling a crisis. A well-stocked first aid kit is essential and should be easily accessible in your workspace. Tailor your first aid kit to the specific risk of working with epoxy resin. For burns caused by heat guns or torches, burn cream should be available to provide immediate relief and prevent further damage. If you accidentally cut yourself on sharp tools, have a variety of adhesive bandages on hand for quick wound care. Eye wash solutions should be kept nearby in case resin or solvents come into contact with your eyes. Larger injuries, such as deep cuts or burns, may require gauze and medical tape to stabilize the wound until professional help arrives. Additionally, antiseptic wipes or creams should be included to prevent infection from minor cuts or abrasions. In addition to a first aid kit, keep emergency phone numbers prominently posted in your studio. This should include local fire and rescue services, poison control, and any other relevant emergency contact. Knowing who to call in the event of an emergency can save valuable time and prevent the situation from escalating. Working with epoxy resin can be incredibly rewarding, but it's important to stay mindful of the risk. Keep yourself safe by always using proper precautions. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumb up and subscribe for more videos like this.